Thank you. Yeah, you can hear me okay. So I want to start off by saying how impressed I am with the conference and with Diana and Sabine and Maxime and Engin. And I just want to say they put on a really good job. So let's give a hand for the team. Yeah, it's kind of weird to be here in this setup, of course, for me. A bit different from the last years. Very relaxing. I only have to do some talking and maybe some typing, so it's very chilled out. And I wanna start by sharing some stories and doing some audience participation. But first, I wanna put something out there, and you can judge it however you want. But I discovered something about the program. So, who was the first speaker yesterday in the morning? Mike Lee. Who was the last speaker yesterday? Yeah, Ash. What's Ash's full first name? Ashley, exactly. Who was the first speaker this morning? Hallie. Who's the last speaker today? Graham Lee. So this all ends in Lee. I just want to put it out there. You can make up the conspiracy theories you want. Right. So that's that. I'm glad I got it off my chest. So last year, after UIKonf, a few weeks after, I went hiking with my friend in the Polish mountains to decompress a little bit. And we were in this mountain hut. And I was not at WWDC, I did not get a ticket, and I was also happy about it because it meant I didn't have to cancel my holiday. And we were sitting in this mountain hut, and then I was live streaming the keynote on Twitter. I was refreshing Mac rumors like crazy. It was really bad Wi-Fi. I was sitting on the stairs and like checking my iPhone like this, and messages kept appearing. I was like, yeah, whatever, iOS 8, uninteresting. And then all of a sudden, a new programming language. And I got really excited. And I really hoped that they would improve Objective-C and then, I don't know, maybe do something like Smalltalk, more in that direction. That was sort of my hope. That would have made me very happy. That they came out with Swift. That made me way happier than Smalltalk, because I'm this recovering Haskell programmer. I used to do a lot of functional programming, and what happened is I downloaded the ebook on the bad Wi-Fi, and I was lying there in the bunk bed in this mountain hut, reading this ebook at night, and I was so excited I couldn't sleep, and I haven't had that from technology maybe since I was 16. So I thought it was really, really cool. And ever since then, I started playing around a lot. And that's also what I want to show today is sort of an experiment and sort of playing around with Swift. Because I think it's this really, it's like clay. You can form it and you can play around with it a lot. Right, so that's the Mountain Hut story. Another thing that happened after UIKonf, so not after the last edition, but after the first edition, is the morning after I sat down with Daniel and Florian, and we founded Objective-C.io. Back then, we didn't really know what it was, but we started basically that morning, and we discussed some things, and we decided we were going to write an issue about lighter view controllers. And this was something that had been in our heads. And this is still actually the most popular issue and the most popular articles. And it's a subject really close to my heart because I think view controllers are really, really complicated. So what we showed there is how you can refactor them. So before I continue a little bit about that, I would like to ask a question again to all of you. So, who here in the audience has a view controller that's more than 100 lines? Right, you're all programmers, right. Who has a view controller that's more than 1,000 lines? Yeah, still half of you. 2,000 lines. Yeah, 3,000 lines. I still see hands. 4,000? Just shout your number at me. Do you know it? 5,500. And in the back, I also saw a hand. About 5,000. Right. So these things are huge and really, really, really complex. And what we did in this issue is we showed how you can make them simpler. So one thing that really helps is to think about what does a view controller do. And often these really big view controllers, I'm guilty of this myself as well. They do so many things, and they're really hard to test. And one of the things you can do with a really big view controller is you can take out the model logic. This is often a really good step. So you put your model logic in the model layer. And this might sound very obvious, but just thinking about doing that and doing that will help your view controller clean up and make your model testable. And your view controller needs less testing and is simpler. So you can, for example, also do stuff like pulling out a UI table view data source into a separate object and not do that in your view controller. And sometimes this can really help if you have similar data sources. Another thing that might sound very obvious is to put your view logic in views. So often you can create custom UI views, which do part of what the view controller does, and you're cleaner. And there are many, many other things. But I think view controllers are a huge problem. And once you start doing this, your view controllers get a lot cleaner. But still, they're very complicated often. And let's say you're a good programmer and you like this lighter view controller stuff, and you put all your model logic in your model, you put all your view logic in your view, then oftentimes your view controller is still very complex. For example, if you imagine a simple app like for example, the Twitter app, what happens there in the main view controller? Well, the view controller will start loading the data. Then once it's loaded the data, in the meantime, it shows some kind of activity indicator. And once it's loaded the data, it will populate all those views with the data. And once these views are populated, oftentimes they're interactive. For example, if you click on a tweet, you might push another view controller. So that's these three things that at least a view controller will do. And I don't really like that it has so many responsibilities. And specifically, one of the things I hate the most is this pushing the view controllers. So when Apple introduced storyboards, it was sort of a way around that. Like you would encode the flow of your app in the storyboards. However, it was still very, very tightly coupled to your code, because you would have the flow in your storyboards, and then on the segues, you configure your view controllers and pass data around, and now you have the flow both of your app in your storyboard, and it's in your view controller subclass. And I don't know, I don't really like that. And the other thing is all this subclassing. I don't really like subclassing. I try to avoid it. Sometimes it can be very good, but oftentimes there are better solutions. So that's all my problems with view controllers, and that's how I set off to play around a bit with Swift to see what I can do. I have to warn you that this is not a production thing. It's just something that I play around with and I want to show. The other thing that I really like about Swift is that we can use all this stuff that's already there. So Apple has made all these really great classes, and UIKit is a really great framework. And for example, stuff like UI Table View Controller, if you actually look into what it does, it has all these magical things that it does for you that you don't have to do again. So this was a really important thing for me to see, like, can I make something that's more functional, but still use the existing stuff? I don't want to throw away all this stuff that we built or that Apple built. Right. OK, so I wrote this book about functional programming in Swift. It's the serious book I wrote, so this is a bit less serious. This is what I'm going to talk about now. And another thing, yeah, I need to make some advertisements in the middle of my talk. I made this app called Scenery. It's all written in Swift, and if you want to play around with it, we have a discount code which will get you 50% off your first purchase. If you don't remember it, just ask me. And that's all the slides I have. So I will quit DexSet. Nice. OK, now the scary part starts. I think live coding is really fun and also a little bit scary, and I will make a mistake. And so do help me if you spot me making a mistake, because my brain doesn't work as well when I'm on stage. So this is the app that we're going to build. It's a GitHub app, and it shows you all the organizations that you're a member of. And you can go into an organization. I don't want to brag, but I'm in the Banana Kid organization. And then inside the organization, you see the repositories that are in that organization. So there's like Banana Kid, and there's this super secret thing called MonkeyDB. And you can go into a repository, and then you see all these issues. So these are the issues in the repository, and you can create a new issue. It's a really ugly screen, but and you can go back, and this is all done. This stuff is all loaded from the network. So let me quickly take down the GitHub API. If we now refresh, you see that there will be an error. We're over the rate limit anyway, I saw yesterday on Twitter. If we refresh again, then I think it should work. Or maybe is the app on again? Yeah, it's, nice spinner. Anyway, this is the app. I wrote all of it in the app delegate. And I'm going to delete it. Now we can see if we try to run this, we will get a build failed, and we can return a UI view controller, just an empty one. And you'll see that we get an empty app. So we're going to try to recreate it using some live programming. OK. So I'm going to use this little framework that does functional view controllers. I'm not going to explain every function in detail, but we'll just make some view controllers, and I think you'll get the hang of it. OK. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a resource table view controller. And this gets a couple of parameters. So a resource is this thing I made which describes an API resource. And in this case, you can see that it has a generic parameter. There's lots of brackets there. And the generic parameter takes a list of B. And that's the stuff that we're going to display in our view controller, in our table view. So in our case, the B is an organization. So this resource, we need some kind of resource that provides us an array of organizations. Luckily, it's already there. We can just type organizations, and you can see by the autocompletion that this is a resource that gives us an array of organizations. Then we need a cell configuration, and this describes how a cell should be rendered. So in our case, it's a cell configuration that renders an organization. And we can just use a standard cell. And this takes a function from A to string. In our case, A will be an organization, so we need to come up with some kind of string given an organization. So to do that in Swift, we can write an inline function, and we can say organization in, and then we need to return a string. Well, if we use the GitHub lingo, an organization doesn't have a name or a title, it has a login. And then a navigation item, and we can just use the default navigation item. So let's see if the compiler is happy. Oh, something is wrong. We can try to run it. Right. I'll put this into a variable. So this is the orgs VZ. Right. So now we created this view controller, but we don't do anything with it. Thank you. And this is sort of a description of a view controller. And the way we can use it is by running it. And what it does, it gets a callback block. So when we select an organization, this block will get executed. And we can, for example, print the organization's name or login. So let's run this. Compiler is happy. And if we now tap on an organization like BananaKit, you will see at the bottom that it printed BananaKit. I hope you can read the very tiny font. And this loads the data from the network, and it displays it in the view controller. So I think this is a very interesting thing. We did not write a single subclass. We just called this function, and all of a sudden, magic stuff happens. So let's take the next step. This looks very ugly. I think it needs to be in a navigation controller. So for that, there's also a function. So I'm just going to kill this and say navigation controller. And then this navigation controller takes a screen of A. If we look at the type of the orgs view controller, I'll zoom in a little bit, you can see that it's a screen of organization. And this means that it's a screen that allows the user to select an organization. So this screen sort of produces an organization for us. So we can just stick that in, the orgs VC, and run it. And now all of a sudden we're in a navigation controller. That was really easy. Okay. So then there's the next step, and that's actually pushing the next view controller. So if we think about what this needs to do, this is something that, given an organization that's selected, we want to create a new view controller with all the repositories in that organization. So we're doing functional programming, so I guess we'll have to write a function. So we can call this repos view controller. And this, I'll write the type first. So this will be a function that, given an organization, will create a screen that allows the user to select a repository. So in order to write a function, we need to write the curly braces, and then we specify the first parameter. So we say org in, and then we can just use the same thing that we already know. We can create a resource table view controller, and then we need a list of repositories. So if we look at the organization, there's and the auto-completion tells us, well, you can just access the repos resource, and then you get a resource of an array of repositories. So we stick that in, and then we need a configuration. Now, we already know how to do this. We just type standard cell, and then pass it a block. And this block takes a repo, and then it returns the repo's title. And then we just pass the default navigation item. And this should work. Or I think it's repo name. So we can build this, and nothing happens. Why is this? Because we don't use it. We just created this variable. So we need some way to combine it. And this is the part where you might start hating me. I'm going to use a custom operator. OK. So I'll put this into a separate variable called flow, and it's going to describe the main flow of our app. And we can say flow.run. Sorry. And if we look at this, at the type, we can see that flow, let's see if the clicking works, is a navigation controller that produces an organization. And the operator we have is called push. Push. It's obvious, right, from the characters that it's called push. And it pushes, given an organization, it will push the repos view controller. We can look at the type of the operator also. And this looks complicated, but really what it says is, if you give me a navigation controller of A, and then a function from A to screen of B, I will give you a navigation controller of B. So we can see and try to run this. So far, so good. Let's try to click on BananaKit. and we got the repositories. So this was, again, very simple. We didn't need to do any subclassing. We just keep using the same pattern over and over again. Right. So let's take another step and finish it, and also show the issues. So I guess everybody now knows how to do this. So we can say issues VC is a function that, given a repository, is going to show us a screen with issues. And then we need to create this function. So we say repo in, and then we just return a resource table view controller that probably this repo has the same thing, right? Repo that issues resource. We put in a standard cell and a default navigation item, and then we need to implement this. So given an issue, we just return the issue's title. And you can really quickly prototype stuff with this. So we can go to BananaKit, we go to BananaKit. We didn't use it yet. So now we need to hook it up and run again. We can go into BananaKit. We can go into the BananaKit repo, and we see all the issues. And I see some people thinking like, well, this is all very simple if you want to create the same view controller over and over again. And I agree. Like, I didn't show too many different things. So let's try to fix that. So the first thing that I want to do, like, if you remember from the very beginning that here in this view controller before, we not only showed the issue title, but also the issue state. And UI table view cell has the subtitle mode that you can use, or the subtitle style, and we can use the same thing. So instead of the standard cell, we can say subtitle cell. I'm sorry about, like, there's the big font and the auto completion. It's a bit hard. With a big screen, it reads a bit easier. But what you can see here is that this subtitle cell, given an issue, it wants a title and a subtitle, so it wants a pair of strings. So this subtitle cell also takes a block, and given an issue, not only does it want an issue title, it also wants, for example, the issue state. So we can try to run this and go into BananaKit, go into the issues, and now all of a sudden we see the subtitle style for the cells. So it's it might look like things are too simple and like you cannot do anything, but the nice thing is that you can make a very simple API that you can then customize. So this is a lot of the stuff works exactly in the same way as Brian described. So now we have only table view controllers that load data from the network and display it and interact with it. But what do you do if you have your own view controllers? Because as I said in the beginning, I don't think we should throw this away. There's a lot of really good value that we already built. And if you have a view controller that you maybe already built in Objective-C and it's 5,000 lines, then you definitely want to reuse that. Right? You don't want to throw it away. So let's try to do that. What I want to make is a login form at the beginning. So I have this login view controller. And this is just a really simple view controller. So here you can see that it has a username text field, just an IB outlet, and it has a password, and it has a completion handler. And then there's an IB action that's hooked up, and this IB action tries to get the username out of the username field, and tries to get the password out, and then calls the completion handler. And this is all done in a storyboard. So it's just really like the same way as you would normally write a view controller. And now what we can do is wrap this and create a screen out of this so that we can use it in our framework. So what we need to do, what we want to make, is we want to create a login view controller screen. And this is going to be a screen that gives us login info. And in order to do that, we need to create an instance of screen, or a value of screen, actually. And this is going to get a callback. And this callback needs to be called whenever the screen is ready. For example, with table view controllers, whenever you tap the cell, or in this case, whenever the user presses login. So we say callback in, and then we instantiate this view controller. So I did this already. I'm cheating a little bit. I'll copy this. So this is really like any old regular UI storyboard instantiation and casting. We need to return this view controller, and the only thing left is to set the callback. Completion, callback. So let's see. The compiler seems to be happy. I'll press build to see if this works. Build succeeded. Yeah. OK, so apparently this screen of login info works. If we now go back into the app delegate, we need to find a way to hook this up. And what we want to do now, instead of starting with the organizations view controller, we want to start with this login view controller. So I'm just going to take this out and say login view controller with small l, and then push the orgs view controller. And this is not going to work. So if you remember that on the right-hand side of this operator, there needed to be a function. Like the issues view controller is a function from repository to screen, and the repos view controller is a function from organization to screen. And our login view controller, if we look at the type, is just a screen. So we need to turn this into a function. And it needs to be a function that, given some login info, produces a screen that shows us the organizations. So we can just, after the equals, write the beginning of the block and put this in. Oh, it's a bit complicated with all the copy pasting. And then for now, we're just going to ignore the login info. And we can run this. And hopefully we get a login screen. Yeah, you can see Chris Lee, my username, and then we press login. And now we see the organizations. So it's really easy to work with this. And this is what I think is awesome about Swift. So we can reuse all these great things that are there, and we can write our own thin wrapper around it. Like the stuff that I showed, it's maybe under 100 lines of code, this whole wrapper. And we can play with this and make something that makes sense for us. For other people, you want to maybe not work with navigation controllers in your project, but you can create these cool wrappers around the existing stuff and around the existing frameworks and make it nicely typed and make it really, like write some really short code. If you look at this, it's definitely not 5,500 lines. It's like 20 lines. And we made an entire app that loads data from the network and works asynchronously and displays it. So that's my message to you. I hope you can also have a lot of fun with Swift and play around with this and see if there's some existing things that you can wrap to make your own cool apps. That's all I have to say. Thank you.